first one is against the big blind, who 3-bets me here. I think my hand can do some 4-betting, but calling is fine too. Large sizing, we want to fold a lot of hands already, but yeah, I think ace jack, ace queen suited are still calling. And we get this board and we see a check, and I was interested, I was thinking here, if I was playing button against big blind, I probably always want to step this and just go bet bet shove here. Being under the gun against big blind where ranges are really tight, I'm not necessarily sure. I always want to stack off with my hand and then just start betting right away. Also, there's a lot of runouts where my hand might not be the best. So I thought maybe checking this hand back sometimes. I also have the advantage having the ace. You know, if he has a hand like ace 5 of spades and I check back and the turn comes an ace, right, I QTo that hand. While if I have a hand like jack 10, or I'm more worried about random turns, there are turns coming ace, turns coming an overcard, while I'm a bit less worried with this hand. So I thought occasionally this hand can check back, and I did roll it in game, but curious to see whether that's true or not. And then on the turn, he uses a polarizing strategy, which I would do the same, makes a lot of sense. He's basically saying he trapped a strong hand on the flop, and given how dynamic this turn is, I thought I definitely have to play jams as the imposition player, and I thought a hand like this would make a lot of sense. If I check this back on such a dynamic turn, I'm always, you know, losing my stack anyway. If, you know, my opponent has kings, queens, aces, I don't think I can get away from my hand at this point on a fairly safe turn. However, there's gonna be a lot of, you know, hands in my opponent's range that have a lot of equity against ace jack, right? Thinking of all the king queens, ace king with like a flush draw, like having 2 overs, 1 or 2 overs that are live, the flush draw, the gut shot potentially, maybe ace 4 of clubs, you know, hands like that. King 4 of clubs, that could make sense in his range. So for jamming makes a lot of sense, and especially how players construct their range of probably betting a bit too much equity driven, jamming and putting, you know, whether he calls or folds his flush draws, I'm happy nonetheless, or his queen 10s here, right? And just going with my equity, and if he has a hand like king jack with a redraw, he has to call off anyway, or just in general king jack, right? So I stack those hands as well. And yeah, so I went for this, and our opponent folded. So maybe he was bluffing complete air and didn't matter really, but yeah, curious to see anyway. So he was supposed to bet half for the check, makes a lot of sense. He checked this time, and yeah, if we have ace jack, we do check back around half the time. If we go to our top pairs, pretty much checking back half the time. And here, kind of what I said, if you have queen jack, jack 10, this hand bets more often, needs more protection than maybe a hand like ace jack or king jack in this case. And check. One more thing here on the 5, I believe that if I had ace jack of clubs, I would much rather call that and let my opponent pick up something on the river. I'm less worried about the rivers than when I have ace jack of spades or hearts. So let's see if that's true as well. On the turn, he's using a polar strategy, so that makes sense. His flush draws are actually supposed to check again quite a lot. Also his combo draws, right? If you see that here, if he has a hand like 7-6, he's supposed to double check that a lot. While I think opponents, it's very natural to just bet this. And if he bets a hand like 7-6 and I jam and he has to fold that, that's a big win when I have ace jack. So I think people might bet a bit too equity driven there. And we see ace jack is a pure call, but a hand like king jack definitely jams sometimes. And we see here that with clubs there's always a call, while the other hands are jamming. And now for the ace jack, same, clubs definitely a call. You can see 4 big blind difference, but actually my hand also quite a clear call, losing more than a big blind. So That's definitely a mistake by my side. I guess it has to do with, you know, if he's bluffing ace king, ace eight with a flush draw, and the ace comes on river, right? I can cooler them that way. While if I jam, yeah, they're just folding, right? I guess that makes sense. Now I'm curious how that would change if we also hands like ace five, ace four, if he three bets those, right? I guess I don't mind him improving to an ace if he's ace four. Now in game, he might bet a couple more overpairs. After checking the flop, he's probably betting them close to always. So I will increase the frequency there, and also add a couple more flush draws to see how that changes our strategy. So let's go node logging here, set the strategy, and say he bets his overpairs 80% of the time instead of 50. But also say he's betting his combo draws 75% of the time, his flush draws 75% of the time, and let's say he's open-ended 50% of the time. So just make his range a bit more equity driven to see how that changes how we should be playing as the imposition, because I think that's quite a bit more natural. And yeah, interesting. Now we do more folding, right? If we compare the two sims, we can see that we do quite a bit more folding, right? 51% compared to 42%, but we also do a lot more jamming than what we should be doing at Nash. And we can see that now ace jack becomes a pure jam. Now, what I'm doing here is more showcasing what I think in which direction the solver might go, or our strategy should shift. Of course, we never know if this guy is actually playing like that. Maybe he balances his betting range more. Maybe he isn't that equity driven. So I could definitely have made a mistake here, but at least always kind of estimating which, you know, direction your opponent might deviate is the best that we can do, and good to at least know what the correct response should be. All right, interesting hand. Let's move on to hand number 4, another 3-bet pot, before we have one more big blind defense spot. So this spot I called under the gun against the cutoff. We see a small c-bet and I decided to call. First is interesting point is here, do we ever raise ace queen on this board? I think we'd rather raise queen jack here than ace queen, just because we have more equity, but I could see ace queen still being a raise, although I think ace queen would also raise more if the board was like queen 8 deuce. Then, you know, on a board as connected like this one, I think we want to be a bit stronger, also because of the positions, because we're under gun against cutoff, while if I were cutoff against button, I think raising and getting an ace queen is better there than it is in these in these positions, where I think my range is more ace queen, ace queen jack, and then maybe queen 10 or better, so like 2 pair plus. It's my check raising range. Turn goes check check, and river comes at 10. Really interesting river. He can definitely have 10x, but he also has a lot of weaker queen x. Probably not that many overpairs. They would almost always bet the turn. So the only better hands that he has after checking back the turn is a 10. And otherwise he has jacks. He has pocket nines for sure. He has king queen, queen jack, pocket nines. Yeah, those type of hands, and then of course a lot of ace king, ace jack that decided, or random suited ace x that decided not to bluff this. So I went for a, I think B70 here on the river, kind of saying I have ace queen or better, betting the sizing. I could also see a block bet sizing making a lot of sense, betting like, yeah, even hands like pocket jacks here for value, trying to, you know, make his ace king indifferent. But not sure if you want to have all ins, but I could also like, we definitely have, you know, queen 10, pocket 8s, some super nutted hands, and we probably don't need to be that afraid of him having too many 10x. So curious to see which sizing the solver picks here, and then we got raised to a non-all-in sizing, basically leaving nothing behind, so I kind of treated it as a shove. But yeah, really weird sizing in a spot where interesting where his bluffs come from. After I go large, I can definitely have 10x myself here. So not the most obvious bluff spot in my opinion. And interesting to note here is I don't block any 10x that he could have, right? If I had ace queen of diamonds, I would block at least, or even twice double block the queen 10, the queen 10 and the ace 10. While here, I don't block any of the suited 10x, which is actually the reason why I decided to fold, even given the good price here. Could definitely get owned here if my opponent bluff raises a lot here with, you know, random ace kings here. But just not in my opinion the spot where people bluff a lot. But I could be wrong. I didn't check the data on this one. So yeah, interesting one to check in the solver. So let's hop into it. So he goes for a small c-bet. On the flop, he can probably do this with range, or at least close to it. If GTO Wizard wants to load here. Come on. Yeah, so close to range bet. And we do have a sliver of raise with ace queen, more with queen jack, and then two pairs or better are raising. Sorry, top pair not that much, but two pair or better obviously mainly raising. While with the top pairs we're more in the queen jack region. We also have some mergey raises with jack 10, 10 9, the kind of bluff slash value depending on the run out. We call, and the turn I believe was the 4 of hearts brick, and I think here he always wants to continue betting his strong hands, so that's why I felt pretty good with about my ace queen on the turn. Don't think he's slow playing many strong here, if any, right? We can see ace queen plus basically always barreling, even merging in queen jack. Only king queen is really checking. Even jacks is supposed to barrel sometimes. I think in practice people probably check jacks and jack 10 here. So a couple more bluff catches, but also a couple less 10x. And the river was the 10 of spades, yeah. And we do see the 70% sizing, so happy days. And my hand is mainly a bet, so that's fine. Let's see if I give it a block bet, if block bet is being used as well. Could make sense for some of the weaker queen x hands and maybe jacks. Yeah, also makes sense. So we went for the larger bet. And he actually has this non-all-in raise size, really interesting. I thought someone would just play jam or check here. Because I felt like a 10, he just wants to go for all of it, but interesting to see. And yeah, for some reason king 10 is not raising. I don't think anybody doesn't raise trips there if they make it on the river. And his bluff raises come from ace king of diamond, which makes a lot of sense, right? Double blocking the suited 10x combinations. Ace king is mainly barreling. I guess there's a sliver of raise with those hands as well, but not much going on. And then ace jack with a diamond also raising sometimes. King 9 of diamond and king jack of diamond also raising sometimes. Makes all sense, and against that ace queen is indifferent. But I guess also ace queen of diamond is indifferent because it blocks the bluffs the same way it blocks the value. Very interesting spots. There's no pure or easy call except if we have a 10 ourselves. Yeah, tough to say whether he bluffs enough or doesn't bluff enough here. But I think it's more natural to check back a 10 and raise it than check back ace king on this turn and then decide to bluff raise it instead of just double barreling. At least that's my perception, but definitely let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. Did I get bluffed here? Did I get owned? Or is this a good fold? What would you do? Let me know. Moving on to the last hand was yeah, we're in the big blind with queen 10. We're defending against the button. We see a small c-bet. I decided to just call even though we flopped 2 pair. Really good board for the big blind, and I think if I want to raise, I mainly want to raise king jack and then some ace queen or ace 10 that is slow play, and my queen 10 just wants to call. Maybe at a low frequency we can still raise queen 10, but the problem of raising queen 10 is that there's going to be a lot of runouts where we're not that happy with our hand anymore, right? Any king jack ace pair in the turn, so I think kind of slow playing this, protecting our calling range is fine. Turn comes a 3, he goes for a small overbet, interesting sizing, but then we just have still an easy call. I think we still beat some ace king, ace jacks here, maybe ace 9 of diamonds, ace 8 of diamonds, obviously plenty of bluffs, not many, no worse 2 pairs here, and then the river comes to 4 of diamonds, and that was an interesting run out where I definitely think we do have flushes in our range. It changes the board quite a bit, this river. Both players have flushes, but obviously we have all queen x and ace x of diamonds. So and he's also gonna check back, his ace king, his ace jacks here always. We might call the turn with some jack x or king x of diamonds, given that those are the combo draws. So I thought it makes sense to have a leading range here, and I decided my hand kind of, if I check and he bets, I only have a bluff catcher, because I don't think he definitely doesn't bet worse for value, while if I lead out for 10%, I can still get called by ace king, ace jack, and it's maybe tougher for him to, bluff raise me here with exactly those hands, and maybe some king nines here that probably have to still raise, while facing that lead, it might be a bit less, well, it's probably going to be tougher for them to bluff raise than if I just check. At least that was my idea in game, so I decided to go for a little 10% lead. So yeah, curious to see what the solver thinks, well, first on the flop, but mainly on the river here in this hand. And interesting enough, my opponent did fold, so I guess he was bluffing. I don't think he folds any value hand here for 10%. Also curious to maybe see if my opponent goes for a bet here and we don't lead out. I guess with the queen of diamonds it would be a decent bluff catcher, but yeah, definitely not the greatest spot. So we saw a small bet on the flop. I'll use the non-AI solution here, just to see for the donks on the river. So we actually can raise more than I thought with 2 pair here. So definitely a mistake there. I thought we need to be stronger, but we can still raise queen 10 here. We call the turn, I think it was 4 of diamonds. I check and he went for a small overbet. Was a bit smaller in game, but I don't think it matters much. And yeah, at this point he's still betting, ace king, ace jack for value, and then some a6 with a diamond redraw. And against that range we obviously have a very clear call, nothing else to do really. And the river came the 3 of diamonds. Let's see if we have any leads on this river. We do have some leads. We have some 10% and we have some 150%, interesting. But obviously our hand, if we ever want to lead, only goes for small sizing, together with some ace 10. So our 2 pair is kind of the region that wants to go for a 10% lead. I'm happy to have found that. And yeah, our bluff raises would be then some jack 8 or some sorry, our other bluff leads would be some not bluff leads, value leads would be the flushes that we have, right? The queen x or the king x of diamonds that could go for a larger sizing. Yeah, finding bluffs in this line is really, really difficult, right? You need to find some jack 10s that call twice and then decide to bluff lead small on the river. Some king queen, I guess, are also bluff leading, but definitely not easy to be balanced in this line. But let's see what he's supposed to do against this sizing. So obviously ace king, ace jack, they're never really supposed to fold. He's not supposed to fold any value hands. We're just trying to make him fold his bluffs. But he still needs to find a decent amount of bluff raises with his king 9, king 8, king 7 here. Still needs to obviously raise his strong hands here. So yeah, this way we get more value from hands that would otherwise, if we check, just check behind. Right? That's the idea of this bet here. And facing the raise, we would obviously be put in a bluff catching situation where having the queen of diamonds, we would have a pretty decent bluff catch as well. The other two pairs are mainly just gonna be folds. So yeah, interesting one at the end there. Definitely tough to be balanced here and have bluffs in this line, but then again, right, these spots come up so infrequently that I don't think it matters too much, and you know, getting a bit of extra value might be better than checking, depending obviously on what you think your opponent is going to do. If he overbluffs, obviously checking is the better option, and this bluff catch. But on a triple Broadway board, 3 flush board, it's hard to be overbluffing. So my thought process was that leading would therefore be high AV than checking. But again, curious to hear what you guys think. So yeah, that was it. Bit of a different format. Let me know if you liked format like this one. If you want if you want me to go into more detail, less detail with these hands. Yeah, any feedback is appreciated. Respect if you made it all the way through the end, through half an hour of me talking and trying to get my points across. And yeah, have a good one, guys. I'll see you in the next one.